Hi, welcome to Gritty and Green. I'm your host and friendly neighborhood master gardener, Meredith Nutting. Listen, this month has been a little too busy for my liking, and it's all because I've been working on a special project called We Are Seeds. It's a 4-part miniseries taking you inside some of the city's community gardens and the stories they hold, all told by the gardeners. I am super excited for you to hear their stories, and it's been a lot of work. So this week, instead of my usual Gritty and Green episode, I have another special treat from Green Philly's second annual EcoFair that took place earlier this year. EcoFair is Green Philly's family-friendly free event held in the spring to showcase regional sustainable resources and initiatives. It's a great place to learn how to live more sustainably and network with community leaders and nonprofits committed to positive environmental change. It's also a really great excuse to visit Cherry Street Pier, which looks out over the beautiful Delaware River waterfront. There are live art activations, a sustainable marketplace with local businesses and nonprofits, and flash talks from storytellers. Spoiler, I'm one of them. And that's what I have to offer to you today. Stories of sustainable journeys told by politicians, community leaders, sustainable business owners, and more. So, with no further ado, here's Julie Hansher from Green Philly.
Thank you for coming to our second annual EcoFair. My name is Julie Hansher. I'm co-founder and editor of Green Philly. We are excited to be here in this lovely Cherry Street Pier on a non-rainy day in May. So, Green Philly is a local media company. We connect people to sustainable solutions, and we do that through our content, our social media, newsletter, and great events like these. So we're really excited today to share some great storytellers with you, talking about the theme of sustainability and why, there's a lot in our journeys to become a more sustainable city. And we're going to hear some of the highlights as well as maybe some of the hurdles or missteps as well. So I'm very excited to bring to the stage, we have the Director of Sustainability for the City of Philadelphia. Liz Lankanau offers more than 25 years of public and private sector planning experience. She began her career at the Philadelphia Historic Commission and was involved with land use and transportation planning while in the private sector. So welcome the Director for the City of Sustainability since March 2023, Liz Lankanau.
Hi, everyone. Yes, Liz Lankanau. I am the Director of the City's Office of Sustainability, and I am a lifelong Philadelphian. And so I was going to talk a little bit about sort of living a sustainable life on the sort of private side. Like I said, I'm a Philadelphian. I grew up in East Falls, and I think the real moment for me that started to shape living a sustainable life was having to take 2 buses. I went to Central High School, and I think I learned pretty early on that I wanted to live a more walkable life, a more compact life. I grew up in East Falls. I live in Fairmount now, so I haven't gotten very far in terms of geography in the city. But yeah, it was really important for me to live a walkable lifestyle. And so I didn't learn how to drive until I was 25. I didn't have a car until I was 32. And we're also supposed today to talk about some of the imperfections of our sustainable living, and I'll highlight some of those at the end. But when I was 28 years old, I started looking for a house, and I could afford $600 a month. And so I knew I was going to be living in a pretty small house, but that was also important to me, having a small footprint in general. Still in that same house 25 years later. It's an 1860s house, so it requires a good bit of maintenance, but because it's small, it's, again, not a very big footprint of work. And my husband and I, who's here, hi Chris, he and I live very much a one thing in, one thing out, so we are very compact. Because we live in Fairmount, of course, it is walkable. There's pretty good transit. Most of the time we don't need that, and of course a lot of access to open space and cultural activities, which is fantastic. So as Julie mentioned, I have a historic preservation background, so living in a house with a lot of the character-defining features of a house was important for me to keep and save, also very sustainable. We have a 1940s kitchen, so while we do not have much in the way of Energy Star appliances. I haven't put much in the landfill with our 1970s washer, our 1940s oven. So I would say in terms of not having a perfect sustainable life, even though we live small and walk most places, we have a gas-powered car. We have an uninsulated shed and a gas-powered house. Like I said, we don't really have much in the way of Energy Star appliances. But really, at the end of the day, I think the takeaway or the spark that has guided my sustainable living journey has been really think about what it is that you need to live a happy and comfortable life. I don't need much, and that's not to say other people don't need more, but that I think has really influenced my sustainable living journey. So, thanks.
Thank you for Liz for talking about her progress over perfection. So at Green Philly, we talk about small ways you can become more sustainable. So whether you have a gas car or taking one thing out or donating, there are so many ways that we can all be more sustainable in everyday lifestyles. So thanks for that inspiration. And I can attest to a partner who has a EV. It's very tricky in the city. And, you know, the charging is still one thing that's being perfected. So it's all about progress today. So our next speaker, who I think has a lot of progress over her career, she is the only elected official in the city of Philadelphia with a planning degree, offering her a unique perspective on social and economic issues. She's a champion for sustainability long before joining city council, having worked as executive director of Fairmount Park Conservancy, also executive director of the Sustainable Business Network, and works towards a better Philadelphia, whether championing for housing or public spaces and trees and a whole plethora of topics. So let's welcome the next speaker, Councilmember Jamie Gauthier, representing West and Southwest Philly.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to see you all today. Again, I'm Councilmember Jamie Gauthier, and I am the chair of City Council's Committee on the Environment. And I also have the honor of representing the 3rd Council District, which encompasses much of West and Southwest Philadelphia. I was born in the 3rd District, but it was really when I became a council member that I started crisscrossing every neighborhood in the district, from University City to Cobbs Creek to East Parkside to King Sessing. And I began to notice, once I started in 2020, that COVID-19 was not the only pandemic making our neighborhoods unhealthy. Illegal dumping was spreading rapidly, and as a city, we were not keeping up. And my breaking point was a particular intersection in Southwest Philadelphia. So at this intersection, you have Bartram Village on one side, Richard Allen Preparatory Charter on another side, a Buddhist monastery on the third side, and a gigantic pile of illegally dumped tires on the fourth side. And this is a place where working families live and where our young people study and where our neighbors come to worship. And every single day, our neighbors look across the street and they see a growing pile of tires rotting in the sun. And I wonder to myself, what kind of message does this send to our residents? What does this tell them about how their city feels about them and how we value them? Unfortunately, this is experienced across Southwest Philadelphia. For generations, Southwest Philly, a working class Black neighborhood, has been almost the region's dumping ground for all kinds of dirty uses. And we are still dealing with the consequences of this today. Recently, I'm sure many of you heard, there was a chemical spill next to Bartram's Garden, which contaminated a well-used public biking trail. And so, during the pandemic, I knew I had to act on this to try to make things better. And that's when I launched my Just Services PHL campaign, which brought the importance of cleaning and greening to the forefront. And that budget year, we won millions of dollars for basic city services being deployed in a more equitable way, including more crews to combat illegal dumping. And I'm so glad that Mayor Parker has taken up this mantle. She has made cleaning and greening one of her top priorities as our mayor. And so we are making good progress. Our communities are much cleaner today than they were when I first started in 2020. But now that we're doing well on cleaning and picking up dumping after it happens, I'm turning my attention to preventing it before it happens. And we do this by prioritizing our zero waste work. We have a goal as a city to reduce waste by 90% before 2035. And to do this, we're employing a full court press, such as expanding recycling and composting initiatives, hiring crews to clean every block every 13 weeks, micro grants for businesses and organizations to implement sustainable business practices, encouraging our developers and contractors to employ sustainable business practices, and much more. I'm particularly proud that in my district, we just opened the region's first soil washing plant. And this means that we can clean and divert 85% of soil that would have otherwise ended up in a landfill. And I believe that there are only 10 of these sites in the entire country. So I'm grateful that we have one in Southwest Philadelphia. That deserves a clap. Thank you. Another priority of mine is ending our reliance on the trash incinerator in Chester County. Chester, it reminds me of Southwest Philadelphia, even though it's not within the city's boundaries. It's also a working class Black community that for a long time has not had the political capital to stop people from toxifying their air and water. And so if you go to the riverfront where the incinerator is, first of all, it's the largest trash incinerator in the entire country. And it's surrounded by all kinds of other dirty uses, so much so that people in Chester cannot enjoy their waterfront. And I think it's wrong for us as a city to be focused on cleaning and greening here, but causing environmental injustice in another place. And I've made it a key part of my agenda to end this practice. But no matter how many programs lawmakers implement, we'll never get to zero waste without your help. Climate change is the most pressing threat to Philadelphia's future, and it will take all of us to make sure that our communities can withstand what we know is coming. So help us to practice zero waste, be part of the greener future that we all want to see. I am heartened to see a healthy crowd here today, so many friends. It gives me hope that we're moving in the right direction. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much to Green Philly, the vendors, to our wonderful Department of Sustainability, and everyone else who put this event together. And thank you for listening. And if you want to stay in touch with me and my work, I'm at Councilmember JG on like every social media platform. So just look me up. And thank you so much.
Great. Thanks to Councilmember Jamie Gauthier. And speaking of taking care of our neighborhoods, we have another great speaker who is a dedicated Germantown resident and community member transforming urban spaces through container gardening. As a healthy neighborhood specialist with the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, Kara works with the Nicetown Tioga community to provide trees and plants to local properties while improving green spaces. So let's welcome, for our next Progress Over Perfection, Kera Gibbs.
Hi, folks. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you about some sustainability work that's been happening in my part of the neighborhood. So I live in Germantown, but all of my work through the Horticultural Society happens in Nicetown and Tioga. It really was an inspiration out of the pandemic when we're all trapped at home trying to figure out what to do. And I had never gardened before and thought, maybe I could start gardening? How can I even get involved in that? So connecting with the Wick Rose Garden, if you guys know, it's on Walnut Lane in Germantown Ave, an incredible place. That's where I got started. And my garden developed from the work of previous gardeners. And slowly, our little Germantown street started to get containers more and more. And then it became an explosion. And now our little block is called Holland on Haynes. So we love that. Please come by. But that kind of circles around my sustainability story and thinking this year, well, I guess the end of last year, we're going to plant 2,000 bulbs. We're going to go in, we're going to plant as many bulbs as possible. We're going to have an explosion, right? But then I thought, okay, how can I really enrich these containers? They've been sitting for a while, so we bought bags and bags of compost. And thinking, yeah, we're doing a great job. We'll be able to keep our beds rich for the rest of the year. Not really following our intuition, which is where this story leads to, of is there a better way that we could kind of extend our garden, but also plant in ways that make sense to what we're doing? If you guys are familiar with Remark Glass, we took a really fun tour there with Green Philly. It was an awesome time down in South Philly at the Box Center. And they do, I guess it's an upcycling of glass. And they kind of crush it down so it's not sharp and you can amend your beds with it. I saw on their social media that they had done a big tulip planting, and they amended all of their beds with this crushed glass. And so that cuts to this year. We're waiting for all of our bulbs to come up. And out of 2,000 bulbs, how many, Jen? You think we got 15? Maybe less than that? Maybe 1,000 bulbs came up. And we should have followed our intuition of the compost is too heavy. How do plants like to be planted? But really wanting to jump in ahead of your intuition can sometimes set you back. So I really encourage all of this centers around trusting what you know about gardening, trusting what you know about your practice, and following that as your sustainability route. Now we have so many people on our block gardening, and it's amazing to see little pots popping up. But I really found that community gardening, similar to the work that I do with PHS, is centered around the community's capacity and how we can connect to each other. Hey! And how we can connect to each other. It's really important when you're first starting out. Gardening can seem so daunting. You're thinking, I need soil, all the plants. How many things can I learn about these plants to keep them alive? And it really works when you're working with your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors. I found out from this older gentleman, a great way to get your peppers to continue to grow is by stuffing matches around the base of your plants. Little things like that. I don't know if I would read that in a book, but just learning from folks. Gardening is very much a practice where you learn and read out of books, but how you connect with your neighbors. And that's how we build our communities in general. So my story really centers around staying close to your community, talking with people, investing in your neighbors, and finding that sustainability that way. Trust your intuition and don't buy heavy compost. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara, for that lovely story. And as a also container gardener in Philadelphia, I have many failed plants. I remember I had a cucumber plant once, and I got one tiny sour cucumber after a whole season. And I've recovered, but not from that. So no heavy compost. And also we have Bennett today, so we can hear, and also Circle in the back, also composting, the sharing excess food. So now that we've heard from neighborhoods, there's also another way we think about sustainability, which I didn't realize that when you typically have an employer, 401k, or a mutual fund, a lot of it goes to oil and gas, or a lot of the funds go to weapons and things that maybe don't match our values. So I'm really excited to hear from the next panelist, or / talk speaker. I was on a panel 2 days ago. It's a lot going on. The marketing associate for Green Century Capital Management with a focus on increasing investor engagement through a strategic approach. Tin joined Green Century in 2025 and holds a BA in environmental design from the University of Colorado Boulder. Welcome, Cecilia Tin.
Hi, welcome to Gritty and Green. I'm your host and friendly neighborhood master gardener, Meredith Nutting. Listen, this month has been a little too busy for my liking, and it's all because I've been working on a special project called We Are Seeds. It's a 4-part miniseries taking you inside some of the city's community gardens and the stories they hold, all told by the gardeners. I am super excited for you to hear their stories, and it's been a lot of work. So this week, instead of my usual Gritty and Green episode, I have another special treat from Green Philly's second annual EcoFair that took place earlier this year. EcoFair is Green Philly's family-friendly free event held in the spring to showcase regional sustainable resources and initiatives. It's a great place to learn how to live more sustainably and network with community leaders and nonprofits committed to positive environmental change. It's also a really great excuse to visit Cherry Street Pier, which looks out over the beautiful Delaware River waterfront. There are live art activations, a sustainable marketplace with local businesses and nonprofits, and flash talks from storytellers. Spoiler, I'm one of them.
philosophy of we can do so much on our own, but we can make even greater impact together. So Green Century manages 3 mutual funds that are all fully divested from fossil fuels. So we kind of live within the larger divestment movement. In addition to offering these mutual funds for individuals to invest in, we leverage our power as shareholders within these companies that we have holdings in, and we engage with them every year on a variety of environmental issues, and we press them to make better environmental decisions. So I kind of found that Green Century embodied this idea of coming together to have a greater impact, because if there was one individual with one small share in one of these companies, we would only have so much say, but since it's a mutual fund and many people are bringing the resources together, we have greater influence. So, for example, I know shareholder advocacy, you might be like, what are you talking about? But an example to illustrate, a couple of years ago, we engaged with Verizon. Our shareholder advocates found that they had environmental goals, but we wanted to push them further. So their goal was to source 4% of their energy usage from renewable energy. After our engagement and discussion with the company, they increased that goal to 50%. So reflecting on my sustainability journey, and even just examples like in marketing, more directly focused on my job, partnering with an organization like Green Philly has just amplified both of our voices and is allowing our message to go even further than if it was just Green Century or just Green Philly. So I guess the overarching theme is connect with people who have those shared values, and that'll bring us so much further than if we're just trying to do this on our own. Thank you.
Okay, I have short person problems, and I realize some of the speakers are a little taller. But speaking, there's a lot talking today, a lot of our inspirational storytellings all about community and really how we can all work together towards a more sustainable future, a more sustainable Philadelphia, city level, and as I like to say, eventually start tackling climate change one by one. So speaking of our blocks and neighborhoods connections, and I love that Jamie mentioned we're trying to clean the neighborhoods, stop illegal dumping, and that impressive trash goal for the city of Philadelphia. We also have another local solution that is a neighborhood-funded block cleaning service in Philadelphia called Glitter. So as our next speaker is the CEO, and he leads a team of cleaners, designers, and project managers helping bring this innovative service to hundreds of blocks every week. You may see those lovely signs that say you can help fund clean this block. That is what Glitter is doing. And prior to Glitter, Brandon was an award-winning producer, designer, and educator. So please welcome Brandon Pousley to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. It saves me from having to do that, so I really appreciate that. My name is Brandon Pousley, and like you mentioned, CEO at Glitter. We're actually a vendor here today up by the front, so if you'd like to learn more about what we do or have a chance to talk to me, I'll be there for the rest of the afternoon. I really appreciate the theme of today's Flash Talks, progress over perfection. It wasn't my mantra coming in today, but I think now it is going to be maybe a plaque on my desk saying that, because being an entrepreneur who has sustainability-minded things, but also has to figure out how to make all this work at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, we're constantly dealing with how do we make those difficult decisions. So I thought I would take my few minutes to share a little bit about my story as a leader of an organization and how I've navigated some of those and am continuing to navigate those. So our story begins, as it sounds like several others, during the pandemic. So my personal journey was by being a resident in Center City and seeing the especially messy state of our streets during that time, and thinking to myself, what can I do as an individual today? And my first thought was get a pair of gloves, get a litter grabber, get some bags, and go out and clean up in my own neighborhood. And I found that really rewarding. I found it actually that I realized how much an individual actually can do in a short period of time in a consistent way. And in doing that, I also had lots of neighbors who would come out and thank me, which was very nice, ask me what I was doing and why I was doing it, which I found kind of puzzling because I was like, I'm a neighbor who's cleaning up. And then also people who would offer me money. And when enough people offer to pay you for something, the entrepreneurial light bulb might go off, and you think, how many other people, well, clearly there's a need, and then you also think about how many other people are out there who, thankfully, I didn't need the funding. I was doing it because I wanted to, and I wanted to get more exercise during a time where you're cooped up inside. But what other people out there really would rely on that funding? And I started thinking, how many blocks are out there that need this, and how many people are out there who have a similar mindset who would love to do this? I met Morgan Berman, who is our founder, who was thinking the same thing at the same time, and we launched a website, and we started getting some submissions in, and we realized there's actually a lot of demand for this here in Philly. And that was kind of the beginning of our journey, and since then it has just been a continual process of asking people, what do they want, and how do we make it work in a context that ensures that we can get people earning a living wage, and something that works very scalably. And we've been always kind of riding that line of sustainability, meaning we're in a world of lots of imperfections. In a perfect world, there would be very little to no trash, right? We'd be really living our circular values, and we'd be saying anything that does need to get discarded is hopefully getting recycled. And there's actually a minimal amount of trash, which means fewer things ending up on our streets. But we weren't dissuaded by the fact that we don't live in a perfect world, and we said, what's the best we can do today? How can we build systems that actually help deal with some of that messiness? And how do we do it on a way that could scale to every single block throughout the city? So we've had to we've been inspired to make choices that lead us to doing things like prioritizing those who can walk to work and do things using green tools and equipment, meaning not gas-powered machines, but doing hand tools in a way that works kind of within our residential neighborhoods. And making sure that the funding that we have coming in from neighbors are enough to be able to pay a living wage sustainably. Just kind of building everything that we knew from the very beginning could actually scale. Those are a lot of difficult choices, right? And we're still facing some of those today, like how much of the things that we collect are going back into the waste stream. We're not very proud of that, right? We'd like to see things getting better diverted into composting and recycling. But again, not sacrificing perfection over progress. We've said we want to prioritize creating quality of life and solutions that we can fund today. So a lot of things do go into the waste stream. But then we also think about where we want to look going forward. So we do have lots of conversations ongoing about how we can get more things out of the waste stream to be recycled, how we can collaborate with composting companies so that we can kind of raise awareness for that on the blocks where we're working. And then one other big thing is working with other funding partners in ways to be able to scale things where either we want to say we want to approach beyond block to block and think about neighborhoods, and also where we can deal with the very present challenge of the ability to pay. We don't want the only way that you can live on a clean block is your personal ability to pay for it. So working with elected officials and other organizations to bring in grant dollars to be able to have a bigger impact in neighborhoods where the ability to pay is the biggest challenge. It's not someone's desire to live on a clean street or someone knowing what the challenges are. So we're proud over the past 4 years to now have 400 blocks that are funded directly by neighbors that we're cleaning every single week, as well as thousands of other blocks through different grant-funded initiatives in neighborhoods like Germantown and Mount Airy, Oxford Circle, and soon to be West Philly, where we are seeing that the ability to do that in a grant-funded way, which relieves some of the pressure on individual neighbors. So that's just a little bit of my journey and bringing up some of the contradictions in this work and how we've worked through that. I invite that conversation. I invite those questions. And like I said, I'll be up at the front around a table in case you have more. I'd be happy to share more about my personal story and what we do at Glitter. Thank you very much.
And thanks for sharing that trash journey into cleaner streets, Brandon. I actually started Green Philly because my employer was taking our recycling and throwing it into the trash, which I call Recyclegate 2008. And from that led a lot more learning all about sustainability. So it's been a progress over perfection for us over the past 17 years. And we also do a lot with water, because you're talking about streets, and obviously the trash from the streets get into the waterways. And I didn't even do this intentionally, but it actually works out perfectly because we love GSI, we love clean streets, we love the water we drink, obviously, that goes, directly to the Schuylkill and Delaware rivers. And the next Flash Talk speaker is going to be talking about, well, I'm not sure what exactly she'll be talking about, but has a expertise in green stormwater infrastructure. So as a graduate student in Temple University's Professional Science Masters of Sustainability program and green stormwater infrastructure intern at the Sustainable Business Network of Philadelphia, long names, it's great. And then through completing her sustainability PSM at Temple, she hopes to continue her work in GSI to advance sustainability and climate resilience throughout the region. So let's welcome Chloe Jenkins, a graduate student and intern for SBN.
All right, I'm going to try not to rely on this too much. Can you hear me okay? Is that good? Okay. I'm going to try not to rely on this too much. I appreciate you calling me an expert. I am not an expert, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about right now. Maybe I won't rely on that at all. Let's see. All right, so I am Chloe. I am doing my professional science master's in sustainability at Temple. We're 2 semesters into the program, so this is all very brand new. And this time last year, I had just moved to Philly, and I had no idea what green stormwater infrastructure was. I had no idea what a combined sewer system was, and if you told me that that would be like my rallying call for what I want to do with my career, I would be totally dumbfounded. So I guess what I want to talk about today is the support that kind of got me to this point. I got my undergrad in communication and media, and I graduated during COVID, which big time sucked. And I didn't have any of the support or the experience that I was supposed to have leaving my undergrad program. And I was lucky enough to get a job, but I kind of discovered that communication and media is a really long way to say marketing and sales, which I'm not into. I kind of floundered around for a little bit, not knowing what I wanted to do, and I had always been interested in sustainability, but growing up, that wasn't something that it didn't seem attainable to me, and it wasn't really encouraged. So I kind of did what was easy, and I did what I'm good at. So I went to school to write, and I thought that would be like a safe route, and then come to find out after COVID, it wasn't. I was literally a drop in the ocean with no support professionally. So after moving to Philly, I kind of just knew it was time for a change. I was working at a fantastic bagel spot in Queen Village called The Bagel Place. Check it out. They make everything in-house. It's wonderful. But I was working there, and I was like, well, I don't want to be bagel manager. So I, reached out to Temple in July, and I was originally just planning to do a sustainability certificate and just, do my few credits and kind of get out and see what I could do. And I was met with the most overwhelming support and encouragement from everybody I came in contact with at Temple regarding this program. And it was so encouraging to the point where I decided to take on thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of loans. So, and I did that without a second thought, because when you're met with that much support, it's just foolish to kind of turn away. And I think that this whole community and everybody in this industry that's just what we're about. We're about supporting each other. We're about, working to make a difference. And I'm seeing that in everybody who's here today. And I'm kind of getting that, something that was a passion for me, sustainability, living sustainably, was a passion and a hobby, has become something so much bigger. So in the program itself, you can go through different tracks and you can, pick your space of interest, but I think the thing that's most important is the support of the community, the support of the directors, the support of advisors, but also the encouragement and requirement to get out and work and do an internship. So although this is my second semester that I just finished, I did my capstone project, and I've been working with SBN, the Sustainable Business Network, as their GSI intern. Again, not an expert on GSI, but now, having worked with them, I want to be an expert on GSI, and that's what I want to do with my career moving forward. And I think, being able to work with them and get that experience is the best way that we can make change as a community. Being able to be educated constantly and, rely on each other is incredible. These last 5 months, we've all been going through the same thing, horrible, unfortunate things. But seeing, working with SBN to put on events to celebrate firms doing work in GSI, their projects, their innovations, has made it clear that there are always going to be hardships in this field, but I've never encountered professionals who are so willing and ready to look at the problem and just support each other through it. So I think, everybody here today is doing the same thing, but if you take anything away from what I'm saying, it's that, the community and the support is really everything. Thank you.
And Chloe, I'd like to say you're an expert in progress because a lot of people don't know about combined sewer systems and what GSI even means, just like you pointed out. So it's all a journey, and we're hearing a lot about the community, the journeys we took to get here. And I also love all the stories we're hearing today. So our next speaker is a storyteller and master gardener in Philadelphia. Through her work in television, film, and her podcast, Gritty and Green, which is also a part of Green Philly. She spent the last 20 years helping people connect with nature and a more sustainable planet. When she's not producing, she spends her time volunteering with the Penn State Extension's Master Gardeners and Sierra Club's local outings. So welcome our lovely podcast host of Gritty and Green, Meredith Nutting, in a green shirt.
Hi, I'm Meredith Nutting. I am your friendly neighborhood master gardener and the host of Gritty and Green, a podcast for truly urban gardening. The first time I killed a plant, I was 23, and it was a cactus in my apartment, and I could have taken that moment and decided that plants and Meredith do not mix, but instead I allowed it to take me on a journey into learning how to live more sustainably, into eventually becoming a master gardener, and becoming a storyteller to help other people maybe go on the garden journey of their own. So I kept bringing in plants to my house. I brought in a few succulents, some pothos, and I learned how to keep them alive. And my windowsill garden started to thrive. And there were casualties along the way. I cannot, in the last 20 years, keep any species of peperomia alive in my house. They are banned, yes. They are banned from my house for their own good. They will die a slow death. But I did keep a lot of other plants alive. And then I started wondering, could I keep other things alive? Like worms? Could I keep a worm bin alive in my house so that it could eat my food scraps and create fertilizer for my plants? Or could I keep yeast alive and bake my own sourdough? Or could I keep bacteria alive and ferment my own vegetables? And the short answer is yes. And the long answer is yes, but with a lot of failure, and a lot of restarts, and a lot of trial and error, and a lot of mold. A lot of mold. But I knew that our ancestors had been doing this for thousands of years, and I would figure it out. So I kept going. And then about 11 years ago, I bought a house in Fishtown, and it had an outdoor space. It wasn't very big, and it was concrete, but it was outdoors, and that is when my gardening exploded. I used the rain check program to get rid of the concrete. I was still cash poor, so I looked around and I thought, what can I use in my garden to make it a garden? I took a bunch of wine bottles and just shoved them in the ground to make a raised bed. And I went to the Farrow Organic Recycling Center, and I got free compost and mulch and filled those beds. I got bricks from old lots and made a spiral herbal garden. I planted stuff in buckets. Anyway, needless to say, the first year I had a lot going on, and actually stuff grew. And I had so many tomatoes, more tomatoes than I could ever eat. And it was fantastic. It was the first time I ate something that I grew. And at the end of the season, when the frost was coming, I had a lot of green cherry tomatoes, and I could not bear to see them go to waste. So now I decided I'm going to can. I'm going to can my food so I can eat it over the winter. And I made a green tomato salsa that was like, okay. And I put it in jars, and it sat in my basement for 8 years, taking up shelf space and jar space. And then I learned 2 things from that. Don't can stuff that's meh. You're never going to eat that. Like, if it's not good right now to eat, you're not going to be like 6 months from now, pull it off the shelf in a jar and be like, that looks good. 2, share. Share that stuff. If you have an abundance in your garden or from your kitchen, share it. Don't underestimate the joy that a neighbor is going to have when you hand them a jar of something that you grew and made. And this is the stuff that builds communities. And our planet is like in a crisis. And our country is in a crisis. And we need community to build those things. In order to survive and thrive through this, we need to stop thinking as individuals and start thinking as community. And gardening is nothing but that. When 2 gardeners sit side by side weeding, they are not just pulling plants up. They are talking. They are meeting their neighbors. They are building community and support systems. And we're going to need that. Gardening is a gateway into living more sustainably. You're starting to notice the environment, how hot it's getting in the summer. Why didn't it rain last October? All of these things keep you tuned into the environment. It's also a gateway into the shared economy. Gardeners share a lot. We share seeds, we share plants, we share harvests, we share knowledge. And we share community. So we're going to need all of that in the future. Start gardening. And as I say on every episode of Gritty and Green, let's get growing. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. And I had no idea I could put my wine bottles in my garden. So thanks for this innovation. Also love the shout out for Fairmount Compost Center. You can get free soil and compost out there, which is great. And speaking of the shared economy and community, especially in times like these, thinking about how we all work together. And I'm not sure if you noticed as well, but today we heard from people, we try to cover the whole range across Green Philly of the city, who's working for our city, the businesses, the individuals, the entrepreneurs, and just and nonprofits, and how we can all work together for a greener future. So I'm really excited for our final speaker, who's passionate about revitalizing communities by focusing on the 3 E's of sustainability: environment, economy, and equity. And she now works for Sustainable Business Network of Greater Philadelphia, a community of businesses all caring about the environment, as the Sustainability Outreach and Engagement Fellow through the AmeriCorps VISTA program. So welcome Erika Farrow to the stage.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you everybody who's talked today, and thank you for having me. As Julie mentioned, I'm the Sustainability Outreach and Engagement Fellow at the Sustainable Business Network of Greater Philadelphia, and that's through the AmeriCorps VISTA program. I've been at that almost a year now, and I started at SBN as a Food Saver Challenge intern. So I've worked with SBN for almost 2 years. And in those 2 years, I've learned a lot about sustainability action in both the environmental and the economic sectors. But I'm still a little early in my environmental career, so today I'm going to talk a little bit more about my personal sustainability journey and what that's looked like for me. So I've always grown up with a love for nature and the outdoors. Thank you. And I remember learning in school about the basics of sustainability, like the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, and all of that. But as I got older, it became increasingly obvious that we're living in a changing climate. The summers are getting hotter, the storms are getting stronger, and we really need to be paying attention to what's happening around us. I remember watching a nature documentary in grade school about climate change and realizing that this is something that I'm very passionate about. And I want to do whatever I can to address climate change and build back positive relationships between humans and the environment. So I decided to go into this field of study, but my personal sustainability journey has definitely had its ebbs and flows. I started again with the basics of learning things like how to recycle and buying reusable products, but I quickly learned that being sustainable can mean a lot of things. And there's a scale of what can make the most impact and what doesn't. I became overwhelmed because sure, there were things that were easier to do, like switching to a reusable water bottle and cutting down my water use. But hearing from other sustainability heroes, like those who are able to grow their own food or even those who live off the grid, it made me realize that it might not be as easy for me as an individual as it sounds. I spent years trying to learn as many new practices as possible and often comparing myself to others and beating myself up for not getting it right, especially when the news would come on and there'd be more scientists talking about impending doom and also with recent executive orders and everything else going on. But as I've grown in this field and in my personal journey, I've come to learn that there's no perfect or right way to live sustainably. I still feel guilty sometimes when I forget my reusable bags or I have to drive instead of walking or taking public transit. But I understand that progress is not linear, and some days I'm better at it than others. But I also recognize that the sustainability should not only fall on the consumers and individuals. We need governments and larger corporations to also focus on this, not only just a linear economic model, but a more circular one as well. And that takes collective action and community. So I've learned that it's best to just be kind to myself and others who are on different levels of their sustainability journey, and that it's okay to not be perfect, especially on our off days. Any small or tiny act even towards a greener future has a great impact, and we should all celebrate our little wins rather than being so hard on ourselves for not doing everything we possibly can. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I love hearing from all the range of today's storytellers. And just to reemphasize a couple of really cool themes I heard today, or we all heard, is community, whether that's with neighbors, other businesses, your physical neighbors or friends and family, connecting with similar values, cleaning the Philly streets, whether that's through the city or doing it yourself and picking up that broom, even if your neighbors are asking why and trying to pay you. Not being an expert in learning, that's also, we're all trying to make progress over perfection over here. Don't can stuff that's meh. That's a very good one because I've tried that before. It's definitely not good. And you can't fool people either. Sharing, which we also have sharing excess with free food today, which is a really another cool reinforcement. And get growing. So hope you all get to enjoy and meet more people here at EcoFair. Just one quick question, the Flash Talk speakers, if I can just grab a quick group photo. Thank you all. Enjoy your day and happy EcoFair Day.
I hope you enjoyed those Flash Talks. I loved hearing about people's journeys into a more sustainable life. And the event was filled with inspirational people who wanted to make a difference to our environment and our community. If you want to learn more about next year's EcoFair and other events held throughout the year, subscribe to Green Philly at greenphl.com. And if you're just finding this podcast, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I'll be back next week with a very special premiere of Gritty and Green, We Are Seeds. Gritty and Green is presented by Green Philly in collaboration with Cool Goon Productions. It was written, directed, and edited by me, Meredith Nutting. Theme music by Kazuya. If you want more information about local sustainability, go to greenphl.com.